Hi, everybody. It's 1 o'clock. I still see a bunch of people signing in, so I'm just going to give it like one more minute and then we'll jump in and get started. But happy Thursday. Thanks for being here. All right, let's get started. Hello and welcome. Thanks for joining us today for Enhancing Your Title Listing 101. This is our first webinar in our Marketers Summer Lunch Series, a short series of virtual sessions designed for publishers who want to learn how to use Edelweiss to make their titles stand out and reach buyers. A cool little marketing series we're doing aimed at giving you tools as marketers, some more education on using Edelweiss. My name is Alison Langlois. I'm a senior client success manager here at Edelweiss. I mostly work with our publishers to keep folks up to date with what's going on at Edelweiss, since there's always so much happening here, and help improve our products for a better experience for our users. I have just a few little housekeeping things before we get started. I'm joined by my colleague and fellow client success member, Shayna Mailer, who will be monitoring the chat. So feel free to use the chat throughout to post questions, comments, or if you want to just say hi. We'll also leave some time at the end, probably 10 minutes or so, to do a live Q&A and make sure you get your questions answered. This webinar will be recorded, and we'll be sharing the recording and some accompanying resources in a post-webinar email that'll go out either later today or tomorrow. Today, we're really going to be focusing on some quick and easy things you can do without any collateral or extra resources needed to take your title listings in Edelweiss to the next level. We'll share the link to check out our other summer sessions in the chat if you'd like to see what else will be covered and register for other sessions you might be interested in. So our agenda today is broken up in 3 different little sections. We're going to start with quick metadata enhancements, including review copies, featuring reviews and bursts. Then we'll jump over to effortless advertising options that require no additional collateral, which include featured titles and featured reviews, and some additional discovery options or opportunities to be aware of, the Edelweiss book lists, and understanding our weekly greeting exposure. These are kind of going to be covered at like a high level, but we'll make sure to include in-depth like how-to resources in the post-webinar email and throughout the chat when we're able to. All right, first off, we'll be talking about one of the most popular functions on Edelweiss review copies. Adding a review copy to your title is one of the best ways to improve your title listing and generate buzz and reviews. It is important to note that the ability to upload review copies requires its own subscription on Edelweiss. We'll share the link in the chat for those who don't have review copy access and would like more information on signing up. But essentially, the review copy subscription allows you to upload a digital, usually a PDF or EPUB file, or an audio version of your title to Edelweiss for the Edelweiss audience to reference when they're browsing your titles. It's a popular feature for booksellers and librarians when making decisions on both pre-pub and backlist titles to add to their stores and collections. It's also an excellent way to tap into the larger reviewer and reader audience on Edelweiss and generate some reviews and excitement for your titles. When you upload your review copies, a digital file, a Kindle file, and an Edelweiss Reader version is automatically generated to allow for kind of some flexibility on reading preferences for the users. I'll talk a bit more about what Edelweiss Reader is in a second as well, in case you're just not familiar with that. We do apply privacy settings to each upload, so the files can't be shared, and you can actually set your own expiration dates that you'd like the files to expire on. You can control your own access settings and make your review copies require that users request the ability to download your titles, or you can allow for immediate download to anyone on Edelweiss. There are tons of customizable features with review copies. Some to know about would be auto approving specific users. So if you are requiring people to request copies from you, you can still auto approve certain users, so they don't need to go through that step. You can actually auto approve full professional communities on Edelweiss, like the whole ABA community or library reads. You can send along your own custom messages after folks download your review copies, where you can communicate a specific call to action. So a lot of times we see with that, it's reminding booksellers like, hey, thanks for downloading our title. Could you nominate it for Indie Next? And maybe reminding them of the deadline, or just reminding folks to leave a review. Once added, your review copy is part of your title data. So it's going to be linked anywhere you see your title on Edelweiss. That kind of makes it easy for reps to share review copies when they're having sales conversations. And also marketing wise, it can make it easy for including links to your review copies in Edelweiss with your own outreach that you do with newsletters, etc. New review copies are included in the new review copies area of our weekly greeting newsletter. For free. This is kind of a perk of just adding new review copies. They'll be included there. This newsletter has our largest audience of about 100,000 subscribers and a 30% open rate. And then, of course, once your title has a review copy attached to it, it'll also be listed under the review copies tab in Edelweiss for extra site exposure and easy discoverability. There are a lot of perks to having review copies, but one of the largest, in my opinion, is the ability to access activity information. So you can actually see everyone who has downloaded your title. You can filter that activity list by library users or bookseller users, or kind of however you'd like to see and break down the results you're getting from adding a review copy. You can also then use those contacts to grow your own marketing lists for like future outreach. Some people will follow up and share ordering information. Again, you can remind about Indie Next deadlines, but that kind of metrics that you receive with it gives you a lot of opportunities to do some additional marketing. A little shout out too for the understanding title metric session that we're doing in August. That's part of this series. We're going to be covering more on just like accessing engagement metrics for your titles. So I would definitely register for that one if it's something that interests you. I mentioned the Edelweiss Reader and wanted to give a bit more information on what that is. So the Edelweiss Reader is our own web-based digital reader that we launched last year. Having this reading option has really provided the ability for users to open review copies in their browser at any time. It's improved our general review copy download numbers and eliminated some barriers to accessing review copies. Because it doesn't require downloading to a third-party app like Kindle or Adobe or Bluefire, which you still can do, but this is just another reading option. It also includes some improved security functions, additional features for readers. There's like the ability to zoom and bookmark and highlight things, and then it'll actually auto return to the place you are when you're reading a book. It's been particularly helpful, I think, for image-heavy publishers. and titles. So like graphic novels and children's books whose file sizes tend to be kind of too large for Kindle and other third-party apps and often require a condensed version that doesn't translate quite as well. It's really been a hit with booksellers and librarians. It's something that we just highlighted at Children's Institute this week. I just really wanted to make sure this is something to be aware of as like kind of an additional perk to adding a review copy to your title on Edelweiss. Next up, two other quick and easy ways to enhance your title data include featuring reviews and adding bursts. Featuring reviews is a free and easy admin function that allows you to ensure your best reviews left on Edelweiss can be visible to all users on the site as they browse your titles. So to feature a review, you simply browse the reviews left on your title within Edelweiss, and then you choose which ones you'd like to feature, which is going to add it to your title listing. So anybody can reference it. As you can kind of see in the picture here, it becomes a part of the title data, and you can easily click in and actually read those reviews if you'd like. It's kind of an underutilized feature at times, but it can make a big difference when a buyer is scrolling through your catalog and is able to like quickly look at what reviews are left and give them a good idea of what people are thinking of that title. Hope that makes sense with featured reviews. Jumping over to bursts. These are another kind of simple free admin feature that allows you to add easy digestible highlights that you can include over your titles in Edelweiss. So this little paperback original drop in here. Publishers use these all the time to communicate releases of new formats, drop-ins, export formats, and more. I've seen some publishers actually use this space to communicate Indie Next deadlines. So it's static, like there are some preloaded options you can kind of use for bursts, but you can also write in something that whatever you'd like to show there. For these, I'd really just suggest kind of playing around with some specific highlights or messages that you might want to include and seeing how it works for you. Always feel free. I always kind of remind people of this, like you can browse other publishers' catalogs on Edelweiss and kind of see how they're using featured reviews or bursts as well, just to get some extra ideas. Okay, I hope that made sense with that first little quick metadata things you can do to your review copies. We're going to switch gears a little bit to some paid advertising options that you can take advantage of without needing any marketing collateral or extra resources. So these are kind of like the ones that don't require extra marketing efforts or like graphic design, things like that. Here I just have some information on why you might want to advertise with us on Edelweiss. We're really the central hub for the book industry with a large mix of booksellers, librarians, reviewers, readers, who are all on Edelweiss actively using the site to market, sell, discover, and order new titles. Our platform has over 1 million page views per day, and our newsletters boast higher than average industry open rates. We also have just tons of varying types and sizes of newsletters. We've got like genre-specific lists, user-specific lists, and then verified professional community lists. So we have like an ABA, Library Reads, and Barnes & Noble newsletter as well. So really just, it's kind of a diverse collection. And in general, we find that Edelweiss is unique in that so many people are using it within the industry. So one of the ad options that requires no additional graphics is featured titles. Booking a featured title is booking a spot. It will give it a highlighted spot at the top of our weekly greeting newsletter. Again, that's the one with 100,000 subscribers and a 30% open rate. Featured titles in our weekly greeting newsletter receive a 3% click-through rate on average, and this ad option also includes a spot at the top of the review copies tab in Edelweiss for the week that you book. So you can kind of see this is within a newsletter, what it might look like. And at the top of the review copies tab, they have this special little area as well. For these, we simply pull your cover image, so there's no additional design needed or marketing work. You can browse available dates for featured titles when booking on the site, but they're generally available weekly until they're booked up. This ad option really pairs nicely around the time you might add a new review copy, because it can just gather some more attention and traffic to your titles. But it's also not required for your titles to be front list or to have a review copy attached to them in order to book a featured title. It's also a nice option if you want to boost attention for maybe a backlist title that might be relevant for a certain holiday coming up, or really any title you just want to get some extra eyes on. Another quick advertising option is booking a featured review, not to be confused with featuring reviews that we talked about as like an admin function. This is an advertising option that includes sharing a review your title has received. This can be a review they received on Edelweiss or otherwise. And you just to display in its own spot within one of our professional user community newsletters. So the newsletter options for this are ABA, Library Reads, and Barnes & Noble newsletters. These all have between a 35 and 40% open rate and communicate need to know information for those specific user groups, which I think kind of is why those open rates are a bit higher. For this one as well, you just simply need to share with us the review that you'd like to feature, and then we'll pull your cover image from the site. So again, no graphics are needed. Availability for these can also be found when booking on the site, and the availability is really dependent on when these like professional community newsletters are going out. We usually have at least 2 of them every month going out, and just what's been booked at that point. Pricing, general ad specs, and just like more information on advertising on Edelweiss can be found in our marketing kit, which we can share in the chat, but I also have a little QR code for this at the end to make sure you guys have access to that. But I did want to highlight too, don't hesitate to reach out if you have additional questions on marketing options. Our marketing team is pretty good at helping people figure out what ad options are the best to meet your goals and stay within your budget. Moving to our last section on additional discovery options to be aware of. Edelweiss Booklists, it's one of my favorite things that we do. It's an excellent free option for publishers to bring some extra attention to their titles. The purpose of the Booklist project is to gather titles around designated themes and awareness months, which tend to be a little more difficult to find with just BISAC designations. And so things that are pretty specific, we can build nice lists around them to share with booksellers and librarians. These title lists are timed around buying seasons with the intention of helping stores and librarians make relevant books available to their communities in a timely manner. For example, like the EcoLit book list would be shared with booksellers and librarians at least 2 months ahead of Earth Day to allow for ordering and shipping before the holidays, so they can be all stocked up and set up for Earth Day. Topics so far this year included EcoLit. We did motherhood, trans and gender nonconforming voices. Still to come, we've got Spanish language showcase, diverse romance, and one on centering the sidelines, because we also have tons of publishers on Edelweiss that include sideline type products. Publishers can submit up to 2 titles per imprint for free to each of these lists. The title lists are highlighted on our site and in upcoming bookseller and librarian newsletters. We typically get around 75 to 100 clicks on each list per newsletter each month. We share our calls for submission to these lists in the publisher newsletter, so make sure you subscribe to that. I do have a QR code for that at the end too. But you can also find just a list of all the upcoming topics and submission forms on the book list landing page, which is on this little QR code here. Yeah, this is just really something all marketing and publicity teams should be taking advantage of if you're not already. Also wanted to make you aware of the exposure opportunities available to you in our weekly greeting newsletter. There isn't much for you to be doing here, but it's just good to know as like marketing folks that this is free exposure that's happening for your titles and available to you. It goes out every Monday and lists all the new review copies and public catalogs added to Edelweiss the week prior. It also lists out any titles pubbing this week for buyers and readers to reference. It is important to be aware that this free publicity is happening. Just anytime you add a title or review copy or catalog to Edelweiss. And kind of a pro tip is to make sure your titles and catalogs have cover images before you add review copies or make your catalogs public. That just gives you the highest chances of getting the extra visual prominence of being one of the few kind of shown in the newsletter here. Here's the QR codes I was talking about. The one on the left will allow you to subscribe to any relevant newsletters. And then the one on the right is to download our marketing kit. These are kind of just two need to have links for marketers. Subscribing to relevant newsletters is also just a great way to kind of see how other people are advertising on Edelweiss and get a feel for just your newsletter options in general. And then, of course, our marketing kit has all the pricing and extra information on all things advertising. But don't worry if you don't have your phone or you miss these, we'll be sharing links to both of these things in the post-webinar email too. I'm so sorry if I talked really fast, but I hope this has been helpful. We wanted to make these kind of bite-size sessions for you, so it wasn't too much at once. This is just 101. 102 of enhancing title data is going to go a bit deeper into like adding videos and links and more that you can do to enhance your title listings, but things that just require a little more work on the marketing side, as opposed to these are just like, you don't have to do much, just like, you know, adding a burst can take not too much time, etc. So we'll continue to dive in deeper with this little bit of extra time we've got. Does anyone have any questions that would be helpful to answer? They can be shared in the chat.
Allison, it looks like there's a question about, someone asked, can you show where we see reviews of a title in terms of picking one to feature? I don't know if that's something we have a good example of right now. I can also share some resources in the chat for that.
Yeah, that might be a good one with the help doc, just on like, it's actually like without, because I can't like open Edelweiss right now, but it's in the like admin area. And we'll share also as part of the post show, we'll share kind of all of the like how-tos of featuring, adding bursts, things like that. So you'll know how to do it. Oh, I see. There's one on what strategies do you think are most helpful for indies with limited budgets? That's a really good question. I think 100% book lists because it's free and it's free publicity and you can get your titles in front of booksellers and librarians just by adding them to those lists if they fall under those designated themes of each of the lists. I also think it depends on like your marketing goals advertising wise. So like the professional community newsletters can be cool if like you're like, hey, I really want to meet ABA booksellers or really want to hit Barnes and Noble Or like, we have a title that we need to get in front of librarians. Library Reads is really good. I definitely think like featuring reviews and adding bursts are, again, free and pretty easy to do. So I would do those. The number one thing is probably review copies, though, just because you actually tangibly are going to get contacts from adding a review copy, that you can use for like everything else that you're doing. So once you get a couple bookseller contacts, then you're growing your bookseller marketing list for like future titles that come out. They're just a great way to kind of not need to come in with a big list of people already and get your titles out there, if that makes sense. See, do you need to submit titles for the weekly greeting newsletter, or is that something that Edelweiss curates? You do not need to submit any titles for weekly greeting. We automatically are pulling new review copies, new catalogs, and then titles pubbing that week for highlighting. There are like feature options. So like if you do book a featured title, you get that kind of featured spot in the weekly greeting newsletter. We also have like different banners for the weekly greeting, that you can kind of take a look at in the marketing kit. But just for like the general inclusion, there's not anything you need to do there. We are totally open to new subjects for book lists because we're always like racking our brains and we don't want it to be repetitive. We want to kind of keep growing those lists. We've actually done a few forms out to booksellers and librarians to ask them what they're looking for. But if you're hearing some of that, that would be great to know too. So definitely let us know. Stats on the open rates for the book list catalogs. The only thing we have for that is that they generally receive between 75 to 100 clicks per collection that we're sharing in the newsletters. So we share them in the bookseller and the librarian monthly newsletters, and those shares of like the collections usually receive generally between 75 and 100 clicks in each newsletter. We also add them on the site in like site pop-ups, so I'm sure they get quite a bit more engagement there. Eric, there are like a ton of other communities you can auto approve. I think there's like a Books a Million. Shayna, is there other ones? Yeah.
Barnes and Noble. Yeah, tons. I think you can auto approve. Can you auto approve the genre communities? I can't remember.
I'm not sure about genre, but we have like tons of even smaller, like there's like an ALA community. So and we'll share, that's part of the post too, is like how to do that, where you can see kind of all the ones available to you and which you'd like to approve. Yeah, but there's actually a lot. Oh yeah, showcase. We did not cover showcases, because they're not necessarily like, I guess showcases are kind of attached to titles. I wonder if that, but you have to have catalog admin abilities to do showcase. They're awesome. Again, a free and a very cool thing you can do. What a showcase essentially is like a collection or a small showcase of titles within a catalog that you're attaching to a specific title. So like say that author has a bunch of other titles, or there's like a series, you can actually make a little showcase underneath them to highlight like titles by the same illustrator, titles by the same author, or like other titles in this series. And they are very, very, very helpful for helping with kind of maybe some backlist titles being added to orders and just awareness while buyers are going through. We are pretty close to time. So if there are other questions, I'm gonna just jump. Want to make sure you guys had this marketing at abovthetreeline.com. That is like the best email that you can really have for talking about your marketing options or all things marketing on Edelweiss. If you ask a question there and it's more of a support question, they'll be sure to kind of pass it forward too. I hope this was helpful. Please, yeah, join us for the other ones. And we'll get the recording and some resources out to you guys today. All right. Thank you.